Let's hear it for me, everybody. Come on. One more time for me. Nice showing up. All right. How amazing was that? Was that so fun? We get to watch together? All right, we're going to introduce the people who make #1 Happy Family USA. Now first, the art director and executive producer, writer, Mona Chalabi is here. Let's hear it for Mona. And the co-creator, co-showrunner, Pam Brady. Let's hear it for Pam Brady. As well as co-creator, showrunner, star, songwriter, Ramy Youssef. Let's hear it for All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Give it up for Judd for doing this. You didn't have to. You didn't have to come. It's already on Prime. Thank you so much. It means a lot. It's always cool when it's already streaming. It's not. Yeah. Thank you.
And how does it feel talking to a crowd that watched that? You know? Because you guys were working on it for years.
Yeah.
And Brady and I, we worked on a movie together, and the entire time this was happening, and I kept going like, when is this thing going to air already? So this has been, how many years in the making?
Well, we pitched it 2020. Summer, right? Because I remember we pitched it, and it was like, Trump was president, and then it came out, and Trump was president, and it was very surreal that it was the same. That's how long it's been. Yeah. But I think animation takes a while, and then the strike, and there was just a bunch of things that. But we had the best team who kind of really put it together to make it feel the visual style is just so exciting, and I think it's what took a while too.
That's true.
Yeah.
We like to think that we got Trump elected twice. So, wait.
You think they'd be all warmed up from an edgy show, but they're still sensitive.
That's a sore one, yeah.
And so, just talk for a second about what you were thinking. I never really asked either of you what the show was, which maybe shows how narcissistic I am. And over 5 years, I never said, can I read it? Can I know what it is? And I never asked. I'm just like, they're doing some cartoon. And then I saw it, and I was like, that was fucking crazy. Like, so funny. I mean, I was just blown away by how bold and, I don't know, it's both kind of sweet and loving and chaos and heresy. It's everything in one show, and it's like it has a big heart, but has the edgiest sense of humor. And I was just so impressed in every way. But when you started this, was this what you had in mind?
I mean, I think on a level it kind of was, because we knew that in the pilot there would be 9/11, right? So we knew this crazy thing was going to happen that is super sensitive and super raw and has never been given an artistic point of view, really from this point of view in any way, which is kind of what I think is just this refraction of an experience that a lot of people in this country went through. And I think that was the experience when we pitched the show. We met with writers, everyone would be like, man, that thing happened to me, man, I have not seen that like covered in any sort of way. And we kind of felt, okay, there's this distance of time, and these really adorable animated characters with these huge eyes might be, able to undercut kind of how sad this thing still is, but we could find something in it that could be crazy. So I think we knew we wanted it to be nuts, because that's kind of the only way. You just gotta go for it. Like, I don't think that you can, tread around certain parts of it, but then we're always, and for me, comedically, stylistically, I'm always trying to make fun of how people react to things, not the thing. right? So it's like, if we're talking about this, it's like, there's nothing funny about what happened. What starts to get funny is, okay, these people were crazy before and now they're crazier. Or, oh wait, look at what these people did. I think we really made sure it was centered always emotionally.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we just also wanted to focus on sort of what Ramy went through as a kid, right? So Rumi, we want to talk about a kid going through puberty. You're already filled with fear, and now the rest of the world is telling you you're the bad guy. And that's also what made it so fun to do in an animated way. But Mona is just like, oh, how do we get inside this kid's head? I mean, we really tried to ground it in order to like earn us the ability to get crazy. So.
And Mona, when did you join, and how did you go about designing all the characters? Because Mona's a writer and the art director for creative director.
Yeah.
Because it's really cool looking. It's very unique. Its visual style.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really lucky that I came on, I'd say quite early.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You had a bunch of pages where the world was already there. The world was there, the characters were there, and I could start to see them as soon as I looked at those very, very early pages. And again, there was that desire for groundedness right from the start, and that actually informed some of my work as well, like the desire to make the characters not look silly, and even for characters that are quite complicated to depict, like George Bush. Like, George Bush is so frequently shown in this way that's very comedic, right? Like, the depiction of him as someone who's dumb, and that kind of actually offsets how someone can be dangerous if they're dumb. And so there was this desire to, like, even in the character design, how do we make him look, I don't know, not dumb, even though he says and does some pretty dumb shit. Yeah.
He looks very handsome. I thought he looked handsome. I literally thought that watching it, that is a handsome looking George Bush.
A touch of Paul Lynn, I think.
Well, and I think like bringing Mona in when we did, we had the pilot story, we had the pitch, but I think bringing you in that early, we got to kind of really make all these decisions about the aesthetic, and then an amazing team, really helped us bring it to life. Griff Kimmons was our director for all our boards.
Griff is out there.
And I think Griff is here. Jeff Picarella, who did just honestly like the best editor I've ever worked with, just because the pace is crazy on this show because it's so joke heavy, and then you need to kind of slow down when things do get emotional. And so I think finding all of that stuff, but the philosophy kind of being ironed out from the top between the three of us, and then knowing, okay, now we're going to enter this. And I have to talk a little bit about like also it taking a while, like because again some of it is just time stuff, but this isn't the run of the mill like computer animation that's like, and not that stuff's great, but we really wanted to make something that almost felt like a found VHS that that could have been on air in 2002, because that was part of it from the beginning was, oh man, if this was on the way that like little crumbs of South Park cutting so deep, as a kid I go, oh shit, I'm not supposed to be watching this, but man, like someone saying something. Same thing here, it's like, man, I would not be allowed to watch this, but if I was able to watch some of it, I would have been, holy shit, this is amazing, like there's something to help. So we really, getting to that place visually, and we worked with the studio Animasia in Malaysia, who, so it was all designed by Muslims, so they were like tripping out because they were like, wait, like we get to make hijabs and we get to, look at this, and they were relating to it, so it was a very, really cool process, even if it took, longer, and just such a great team to bring it together,
Say the thing about the computers from animation.
Oh yeah, we had to, well, you said it.
Okay. The studio, they were working with software that was so old, which also helped to inform this like truly older aesthetic, that we had to get older computers to be able to run this.
Again, shout out Griff and Dave for dealing with all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, yeah.
And how much of this family world is taken from like real specific people in your world?
I think this is a real, for me, such a room show, like, and that was our experience, and I think having, Mona also writing in the room was really great, because it's a true, everyone's a symbol, and so we really grabbed a lot of great stories from all our writers, and we have writers who, we had 2 writers from London, we had writers from Canada, we had writers from America, and this was cool, it was like a Zoom pandemic thing as well, so we got to kind of spread the whole, world out and find these. So I would say the core thing that was that probably started the show, 2 ideas. One was I did get a Bulls jersey that fit me like a dress when I was a kid because my parents wanted to save money. The jersey would fit me to this day. It's tight, but it fits me. That's how big it was. And then was kind of this idea of realizing that my parents would be different when we were in the front yard. Realizing that, oh, okay, like that there's something different that happens when you're in the house, when you're outside the house. And I think that's true for everybody. And I think the more we zoned in on that, it felt like that was the universal invite for the show, that anyone could, because everyone here does it. We all do it. We all have that thing. But then it became, how do we make that dramatic? How do you watch a man ashamed of his beard immediately turn it into a mustache, a girl who doesn't want to have curly hair, have it become straight, etc. And so those ideas felt really exciting for us. And those really came from my childhood, and then the rest, you know. Oh, and also my grandma was always watching TV when I was a kid, and so then that was one of the first ideas was, what if grandma always has her TV, no matter what's happening, funeral, anything, she'll have it.
Bus ride.
Yeah.
Because after 9/11, people really weren't making jokes. Even on Saturday Night Live, they made jokes about the fact that they weren't going to be funny anymore, and they actually didn't make political jokes in the way that they were for almost 2 years, where you felt the show was holding back on Bush. I remember the moment I realized that it was over was there was a sketch with Will Ferrell and Daryl Hammond as Cheney, and the implication was that Cheney had sex with George Bush. That he was in control of him, and he was also like his sex toy of some sort. And I thought, okay, it's over. They're fully back in making fun of it. But it's still like a very strong choice to use that as the premise of something like this, but opens the way to a ton of jokes. Why do you think you were allowed to make this right now? Because it is a wonderful thing that in a moment of intolerance, you have something beautiful and hilarious like this. But how did it happen?
I mean, I think it was really, again, like I hope this comes through, and it seems, you know, we've gotten such great response to the show. The emotional core of it felt like it was worth discussing. I think on a level you could say, yeah, okay, 9/11 happens at the pilot, and you know, we're in this era, but I think it informs something that is eerily relevant today. I think this idea of needing to prove your patriotism, this idea of you're here but you're not really here, or we're gonna look at you through a certain lens, is something that too many people relate to, you know, really in all walks of life. And so I think that's really what the show is about, and I think that's why we're allowed to make the show. Because again, the show is not, it's not about, like, you know, taking the piss out of this really tragic thing. It's actually about watching the tragic ways people act around tragedy. And then it starts to be, okay, well, maybe that sounds like a bit of a bummer, but here's all these funny jokes and why it's actually going to be, you know, really funny. So I think that's why we were allowed to make it, and also there was a very active streaming war going on between the streamers in 2020, where people were buying things.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a weird time. I was thinking about how, with my own experience, it's like, oh, it's so weird to be a writer on South Park. We lived through it. We were like nervous about, well, how do we handle it? And then we did the Osama bin Laden has farty pants, which I stand by. But it's so interesting to be able to, you know, sort of approach the material with hindsight, right? And then have so much more confidence. Because I mean, it was a scary time. Like you're saying, you can't make fun of George Bush. Like it would be like your patriotism was being questioned. And that's also what we wanted to comment on, like, oh, how do we end up where we are now? And I'd like to think we've made a lot of progress, but I worry that we're, in some ways, worse off in terms of free speech, things like that.
Like, my background before I started work on this show was in journalism, and it wasn't actually a massive stretch to do work on this, because there was still so much about the work for this show that actually was super research. Like, even when we were thinking about what is it that Grandma is watching on the television, we were researching what shows were on back then, that again grounds it in something that felt really, really real about the context. And again, I feel like those shows that she was watching back then Okay, Maori isn't on anymore. It's different. Maury,
Maury, yeah.
Maury, sorry.
It's not about the New Zealand.
It's not on, but you can still see like the threads of some of the things that were there that also still inform today, like the pop culture things when we were talking about Britney and Justin in the show, like all of that also informs the moment that we're in. Yeah.
What about the issue of code switching on the show, which is a big part of it, and what you did visually with it looks amazing and is so funny. But could you speak to that?
I mean, we that was like a whole process, I think, with the whole team and trying to figure out how to pull off this again, this idea that was on pitch pages, and then and I think we probably went through it with Griff and everyone probably we saw many versions. I mean, I think we saw many versions, and I think something that did end up helping us was we asked our composer, Moaz Douad, who actually, this entire show was composed from an apartment in Alexandria, Egypt, by a dude who's never composed a show before. And he used all local Egyptian musicians and vocalists, and it's crazy, because in Egypt too, it's like, you can be this world-class musician, but then you just work at the bank. Like, it's not like a career, you know what I mean? So like there was the guy who's like doing all the vocalizations, like investigation and all that stuff. That was us playing around with, we would get tracks back and go, oh, can you do English words? Can you try this? But he sent us all these code switch sounds. There was something that kind of sounded like a dial-up internet. And that was a big click for us, because we were like, oh, that's cool, because it's got that of the era. And then I think we started playing around that area, and how do you make it kind of look like you're trying to get online as this, other version of yourself.
And visually too, it's like if you, in the 90s, if you bumped into your VHS, machine, it'll glitch. And so we sort of wanted to visually get them all over the place too.
Yeah.
I guess one of those really special things about animation that's different to other things, where everything was happening at the same time. So the sound design is informing some of the character design, some of the motion design, and the motion design is informing some of the character design. It was surreal that everything was happening at once, but really effective. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really iterative process, which, as a stand-up, I really appreciate. I mean, and it's so different from live action for me. And I'm seeing Dave Newberg here, because there's this moment where the scripts were going in, and I was like, these scripts aren't ready. And then Dave was like, no, dude, this isn't live action. They're never going to be ready. Don't even worry. You're not, because I'm used to just going to set with a script, and maybe you're going to get some alts, but we're also always shooting so low budget. We don't do alts. I mean, I so many of the comedic things I've done, everything feels fresh and loose, and it's really a testament to great casting, and we try to hone in the writing. We never have time to do alts, because we're doing 3 location pushes in a day, and we're trying to shoot an episode in 4.5 days. This process is totally different, because it's you hear it and then you go, oh wait, all right, we have another booth session with them, awesome, we're gonna do this, and again, testament to the team moving so fast with we had such a great team on boards and everything, because we were able to shift things and find things, and I think it's why the show gets to have the voice that it has. And so the stand-up in me, the joke maximalist in Pam, that really lit me up making this show.
Oh, it was so fun. And then it does take the stress off. Of course, it took us 18 years to do the show. It took us 4. But it's so nice to know, the stress with producing a TV show always is that feeling of oh boy, we've run out of time. You know what I mean? But here we always had another shot at it. And it was great.
And there's so much music in it, which I also didn't know. Me never asking. I didn't even know you played anything. I didn't know. Maybe we're not friends. That's what I've realized right now.
But we actually hang out a lot, and I know a lot about you.
You don't know where
I know
my music quality is. You don't know my sing. You don't know I play the oboe. You have no idea. But I mean, the music is so great and hilarious, but it really also, allows you to have these emotional moments on the show, and the beautiful, song about the light, which is, just powerful and really explains what the whole show is about. But how is it for you, writing songs and performing all of these songs? Because I have to say, as a friend, when I watch it, it just seems like you're really enjoying that part of it.
Yeah, no, it started off stressful because I didn't, we were trying to cast the voice of the dad, because again, that's what I was used to doing. And then Pam kept pushing me like, dude, you got to do all the voices. And I was like, no, but this guy's got to sound, a certain way. But I got around to doing that. That took me some time to figure out the distance between the voices. I think we spent it could have been 4, 5, 6 months, like really just like we'd do booth sessions and go, I don't know. And then I kind of found the distance and the difference. And then there was this one studio that we were working at in New York that had all these guitars, and we were between setups, like switching the track for episodes, and I just kind of picked up a guitar. I hadn't really played that much since high school. I was like in a, New Jersey emo band.
What was the name of that band?
We were called Alex and the Horribles, and I was not Alex. So
Original songs with Alex and the Horribles?
Oh yeah.
What was just sing a little of one?
I wasn't the sing. I mean, it was screamo, so it wasn't even. Yeah, it was kind of like indie screamo.
Like a 9 Inch Nails type thing.
Yeah, I mean that's maybe like a little more metal, but I think it was just a very specific. I don't know if anyone here knows what the hell I'm talking. Very specific New Jersey, like Thursday, Taking Back Sunday. You know what I mean? Like just tight pants, straight hair. I hated my hair because it wasn't straight. So, so I picked up this guitar, and then I was like, oh, I wonder what it would sound like if Hussein wrote a song to promote his halal cart. And then I wrote this song, just riffed this song, Money for the Meat. I think Dave probably was like telling the audio guy, like, roll on that, whatever. And then it started, and then I think Mona had picked this really great theme song. Remember we had a temp theme song? And then it became, well, what if he sings the theme song? And then we just added this whole layer of songs. And then I think we wrote 7 songs. 4 of them are in the show. The other 3 will be on the vinyl that's coming out.
And there
actually is a vinyl, by Halal Harry. That we're gonna, yeah. So it was a very. What it did for the character was, I found this voice that I think is anxiety personified as a person. He's always anxious. It starts off he's anxious about money, and then he becomes anxious about really the whole world falling on his head. And then I wanted. The more I got to play with the music, I wanted this other side of him. I didn't want him to be, one-dimensional, because I actually think a lot of our characters, and for people who watch the whole series, will see everyone gets to show this other side of who they are, and he kind of only really does that in the music. Like he doesn't do that anywhere else.
He's such an internal guy. I mean, here's a guy that's sort of lonely, isolated a little bit, and he talks to birds. Yeah. And he talks to animals. And what's interesting is that when we started, I mean, Rumi is the lead character, and I think something interesting happened of like identifying to the kid part of you, and then identifying to the adult part of you. So that's what was super cool about,
I was telling Mona, I was like, I think Hussein's the main character.
I mean, kind of
He is, yeah. I'm okay with that.
And what do you think it says about the Muslim families? I mean, there's a lot of people in the country that this is their first window into some of that, and I think part of it they're so warm and crazy and funny, and it seems like it's an opportunity at a moment in our country where people are very kind of closed off, and to warm things up a little bit, like everybody is the same.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we talk about this a lot. The hopeful part of me, and I'd like everyone to answer this because this is just my take on it. The hopeful part of me says, you watch this and you connect. Not even in saying we're exactly the same, but almost like we have the same problems. Because I think so many families in this country are struggling to make ends meet, and the idea of a dad that like shows you your power bill is just relatable. Like that's not, that's just how people feel. This idea again of I feel like I need to show a different part of who I am to the world because I don't think what I am is safe or enough or correct. But I don't know sometimes I'm not sure, because I think that people watch with the eye that they want to watch. So someone could put this on, and this is kind of just the cost of doing business or making something that bites, is someone could just put it on and be like, see, they're just yelling all the time and they make the grandma cover up. Like, I don't know, like someone can do that if they want to do it. And we live in such a fractured kind of landscape that people just pick the narrative that they want. So I'm not sure, and that's why I always kind of think, okay, maybe the only people watching are people who relatively agree with me, And that's the audience that's worth challenging, and that's the audience that's worth having a conversation with. And that's what I think that I like to do with any of my work, is think, okay, the choir is gonna watch. I don't wanna preach to the choir. I wanna kind of like poke around the choir and, get people to sing different parts,
Well, also, I think that it's also a show about being a kid and going to school. And we haven't had a great, hilarious comedy about those years, or one that reflects how everyone's feeling right now. How is it writing about school?
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like my middle school experience was maybe slightly different to a New Jersey experience, maybe. But there's still also those commonalities, right? Yeah, it's the exact same feelings, regardless of whether you're a little boy or a little girl. I don't know. And again, it relates to this question of like, will people be able to give a shit about a Muslim family, basically? And I feel like I don't know if people will, honestly. But I think that hopefully what people will see in the show is the pressures that exist on that family that create certain behaviours. And I think that's really, really interesting for people to get their head around. And nowhere is that clearer actually than in school. You can see all of the pressures that kids have on them that make them kind of crazy. And those pressures are sometimes quite hard to see. And I think that's where some of the writing for the show is strongest, where you can actually see the pressures on these people.
And how a panicked government affects real people.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when we see that, I'm sure there's a lot of people right now in a panic in our country, when the country is getting paranoid and political, and how it actually affects people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The see something, say something episode, it just felt like I just love that episode because you're bringing all the fear together. I'm burning a CD. You're going to go to jail, and then now it's got to blow up the school. So just the more we could really relate and do what is the kid story, which is also where we always began on South Park. It's like we always started with what's the boy story, and then found the kernel of truth there, and then we could take it to space.
What's fun about the show also is, you always hear can you be funny anymore? We don't have to say what we want to say anymore. And then you see this and you go, yes, you can. You don't feel that there's any limits on speech, on ideas in the show. I mean, it really goes as far as you can go. And
yeah, no, I mean, I've never resonated with that conversation, but again, because I think that I'm always interested in internal machinations, so I'm not interested in kind of saying, hey, I'm going to point at you and make fun of you. It's always going to be, oh man, what internal flaw is being exposed? And I think when it's going inward, you can really go incredibly deep, and I don't think that it's not offensive because it's just, I think it's clear where it's pointed, and you really can kind of explore, almost anything, and I think that finding that balance on this show, I could not have done without this team, truly, because it's not. This is so out of my depth to just do as an individual person, and that's I've just never been more part of a team thing to strike all those balances and to make sure that it connects.
What are you trying to say spiritually
In the show?
Yeah, because it is an undercurrent of the entire show is the idea of religion.
Yeah, I mean it's there. I mean it's interesting because I think that in making our Hulu show Ramy and making Mo, you kind of have these characters that are a bit more overtly religious, and I think what's interesting with this family, you kind of see it in Sharia probably more than anybody. But I think what they're going through, spiritually is actually a bit of an American crisis. I don't think it is even a crisis of their religion. I think it is a crisis of neighborhood and a crisis of in so many ways, I think the show is about capitalism, because it's what's really underneath is if I don't perform as a person and I'm not who I am, my entire livelihood is threatened. And that's why the show in so many ways ends up kind of becoming about the halal card. And so spiritually, I'm really interested in this idea of what parts of yourself do you sell in order to sell meat? Quite literally, what are you giving up? How are you changing who you really are, which these characters do every scene? What is that change doing for you, and is it worth it? And I think that's a question that everyone should ask.
But for all of you, what is a scene that just you can't believe how funny it came out? It's like, what tickles you specifically?
I have the musical montage with Rumi just thinking about Mrs. Malcolm.
Oh,
So good. It's so good. We talked so much about the music for that, the scoring. I feel like the music is perfect where we landed. It's just, again, it's that example of it is so ridiculous, and just when you think it's not going to get more ridiculous, she stands up in court and she's pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
It just gets more and more, and yet it works.
And we kept wanting to do the newspaper gag where you just sort of pull out from the newspaper.
Yeah.
And then we have the fetus reading a newspaper. Pull out.
And then it has a tragic end.
Oh, it's got to, I mean, that's the best part. And that was Ramy. It was just like, keep pushing it, keep pushing. And like, I don't, remember we had this conversation. I'm famously wrong about stuff like this. And I'm like, I don't know if she should die. And Ramy's like, oh, no.
She has to die.
That's a bold choice. That's just a bold choice.
Well, it's because we can't promote this behavior, and so there's this, I feel this responsibility to say, hey kids, this is how it will end, don't pursue her. You know, that was probably the most moralistic I've been on the show.
That's why you made the whole show.
Probably, yeah, just to tell people, don't pursue the teacher thing. That's my answer for the spiritual thing earlier. Yeah, don't do the teacher thing.
Pam, what is?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top that one. I'm trying to think, what are the other funny ones? The other big funny bits.
We have something in our finale that I don't think this is like a spoiler show, so if you haven't seen it, but we do this thing where Rumi gets into the insides of the government, and he's actually like directly recruited, because you know the movie Spy Kids, I loved it when I was a kid. And so he finds out that Spy Kids is an actual government program, and we have this sequence of all these like basically like Manchurian candidate militarized children in an airplane, and it is like the craziest visual because they're all just like ready to go to war, and that us pulling that off, it's like it's up there with. There's a few that I'm just like I don't. We have this whole sequence about beavers. I mean, we have this. Crazy,
oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Kieran Culkin, dentist character. He's constantly making these weird allusions to like. Bad things happened to me when I was a kid. I was way too young to see any of these things. And when we finally pay it off, and why he became a dentist,
don't spoil
I'm talking about not to spoil.
That's crazy. But yeah.
Do you have visions for where the show can go over a long run?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, the era, to me, it started off about the era, you know, we're lucky we got to make 2 seasons at once, so we kind of know where that's going, but the more we've made the show, it's really about these characters, so it's like we could sit in this for a really long time, and I think that I would probably just want to push it to the brink until maybe they grow a little, and then I'd stop making it. Yeah, I don't think it's about watching them grow too much. But
I'd like to get Ramy pretty involved in the George W. Bush administration. The war on terror.
I want to get him to Iraq. I want to get him to Iraq to do some peace negotiations over there. Let's take it all the way through to 2003.
Well, I think it's an incredibly special show, and it really takes this type of work to another level, and congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much.
We want to thank all of our guests for joining us.